What happens when a lawyer who's won hundreds of cases walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom believing they know more about the law than the judge himself? This arrogant attorney made a statement so breathtakingly disrespectful that even seasoned court officers couldn't believe what they were hearing. Marcus Blackwell, a 45-year-old partner at one of Rhode Island's most prestigious law firms, walked into that courtroom wearing a $3,500 suit and carrying 2 decades of courtroom victories. He defends wealthy DUI clients for $15,000 per case and has built his entire career on getting them off on technicalities. But today, Marcus Blackwell isn't here as an attorney. He's here as a defendant facing his own DUI charge. The irony is almost poetic, and what makes this story absolutely incredible is that Blackwell walked in believing his legal expertise would intimidate Judge Caprio into going easy on him. He had no idea that Judge Caprio had spent the previous evening researching every case Blackwell ever won, every technicality he ever exploited, and every wealthy drunk driver he put back on the streets. And when Judge Caprio revealed what he knew about Marcus's pattern of gaming the system, what happened next became the most talked about courtroom takedown in Providence history. Marcus Blackwell stood at the defendant's table with that condescending smile lawyers reserve for people they think don't understand the law. He corrected Judge Caprio's legal terminology. He interrupted proceedings to cite case precedents. He treated the courtroom like a law school lecture where he was the professor and everyone else was there to learn from his brilliance. And then, in a moment of pure arrogance that would destroy his 20-year career, he said 5 words that crossed a line no attorney should ever cross. He looked directly at Judge Frank Caprio and said, "You're just a municipal judge." Those 5 words, dripping with contempt and superiority, set in motion a response so devastating, so perfectly calibrated, that lawyers across the country would study it for years to come. Before we dive into this incredible story, less than 5% of you watching are actually subscribed. If you believe that lawyers aren't above the law, that legal expertise doesn't exempt you from consequences, and that courtroom respect is non-negotiable, hit that subscribe button right now. This story is already going viral across social media, and you don't want to miss what Judge Caprio does next. Because what happens when an arrogant attorney meets a judge who refuses to be intimidated isn't just a court ruling. It's a masterclass in why respect for the law matters more than knowledge of the law. It's Monday morning at 10 a.m. in Providence Municipal Court, and Judge Frank Caprio is reviewing the case file for what appears to be a routine DUI case. But something about this one feels different. The defendant is Marcus Blackwell, an attorney with a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and completely willing to exploit any loophole to win. Judge Caprio has seen Blackwell's name on cases before, always representing wealthy clients, always finding ways to get charges dismissed on technicalities. The judge has spent 38 years on this bench, and he's developed an instinct for when someone is going to be a problem. This morning, that instinct is screaming. The courtroom is packed this Monday morning. Word has gotten out that Marcus Blackwell is appearing as a defendant, and other lawyers have shown up to watch. Some are curious. Some are hoping to see the great Marcus Blackwell squirm a little. Court regulars who follow Judge Caprio's cases sense that something dramatic is about to happen. There's an energy in the room, a collective anticipation that this won't be an ordinary hearing. Marcus Blackwell enters the courtroom like he owns the building. His Tom Ford suit fits perfectly, tailored to emphasize success and power. His Italian leather briefcase probably cost more than most people spend on rent. A Rolex Submariner watch worth $40,000 catches the fluorescent lights as he walks. His shoes are handmade Italian leather, the kind you have to special order. Everything about Marcus Blackwell screams wealth, success, and superiority. But it's not just the expensive clothes that fill the room. It's the attitude. The way he walks with the swagger of someone who's never lost an argument. The way he doesn't acknowledge anyone in the courtroom, not the bailiff, not the court reporter, not even Judge Caprio initially. He's too busy reviewing notes on his tablet, making everyone wait for him. Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork with his characteristic patience and respect for all defendants, regardless of who they are. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell." Marcus barely glances up from his tablet. "Morning, Judge." Not good morning, Your Honor. Not the respectful acknowledgement that every other defendant gives. Just a casual greeting you'd offer someone holding an elevator door. He sets his tablet down on the defendant's table with deliberate slowness, making the judge wait while he organizes his notes. It's a small power play, but everyone in the courtroom notices it. This attorney just made a judge wait for him, and he did it intentionally. Judge Caprio maintains his professional composure, though those who know him well can see the slight tightening around his eyes. Mr. Blackwell, you're charged with operating under the influence. Your blood alcohol content was measured at .12, which is 50% above the legal limit of .08. How do you respond to this charge? Marcus Blackwell looks up from his notes with the expression of a professor about to correct a student's mistake. Allegedly operating under the influence, Your Honor. I'm sure you're aware that breathalyzer tests have a significant margin of error that defense attorneys exploit regularly in court. I should know. I've gotten 47 clients acquitted on exactly this type of charge by challenging the reliability of BAC testing equipment. The condescension in his voice is palpable. He's not just answering the question. He's lecturing Judge Caprio about the law, as if the judge who's presided over thousands of DUI cases doesn't understand how breathalyzers work. The gallery murmurs with disbelief. Did this attorney just lecture the judge in his own courtroom? Several lawyers in attendance exchange glances. They know Marcus Blackwell's reputation for arrogance, but this is bold even for him. Judge Caprio's expression remains calm, though his tone becomes slightly firmer. Mr. Blackwell, I'm quite familiar with breathalyzer reliability standards. Let's review the circumstances of your arrest and allow the facts to speak for themselves. Before Judge Caprio can continue, Marcus Blackwell interrupts. If I may, Your Honor, before we proceed with the particulars of this case, I'd like to point out several procedural irregularities in how this traffic stop was conducted. The officer's report indicates he observed my vehicle for only 6 blocks before initiating the stop, which may not constitute sufficient probable cause under the standard established in Delaware v. Prowse. Furthermore, the timeline between the stop and the administration of the breathalyzer test exceeds the recommended window for accurate results, which creates reasonable doubt about the reliability of the BAC reading. The courtroom falls completely silent. Marcus Blackwell is treating this hearing like a case where he's the defense attorney, not the defendant. He's citing case law, challenging procedures, and conducting what amounts to a cross-examination of his own arrest. Judge Caprio sets down his pen and looks directly at Marcus Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell, I need to remind you that you are the defendant in this case, not the attorney. I need you to listen to the charges and respond appropriately, not litigate procedural matters during your arraignment. Marcus Blackwell has the audacity to smile. Of course, Your Honor. Force of habit. I'm so accustomed to protecting my client's constitutional rights that I sometimes forget which side of the bench I'm on today. Though I should mention that technically, arraignments can involve preliminary motions to dismiss if there are clear constitutional violations apparent in the charging documents themselves. Judge Caprio's legendary patience is being tested in ways that rarely happen in his courtroom. Mr. Blackwell, this is not a trial. This is an arraignment where I need to understand the basic facts of your case. Can you allow me to review the police report without interruption? Marcus nods, but his expression suggests he's doing Judge Caprio a favor by remaining quiet. The judge begins reading from the police report. On Saturday, November 18th, at approximately 11:30 p.m., Officer Martinez observed your vehicle leaving the parking lot of Castellano's Steakhouse. According to his report, your Mercedes was swerving across lane markers and nearly collided with a parked vehicle on Westminster Street. Officer Martinez followed your vehicle for 6 blocks, during which time he observed you cross the center line twice and fail to signal a turn. He initiated a traffic stop at the corner of Westminster and Dorrance. Marcus Blackwell shifts in his expensive chair, unable to help himself. Your Honor, the term swerving is highly subjective. What Officer Martinez characterized as swerving could easily have been normal lane adjustment to avoid a pothole or road debris. The nearly collided phrase is prosecutorial hyperbole. My vehicle at no point made contact with any other vehicle or object. These are the kinds of exaggerated descriptions that officers use to justify stops they've already decided to make. Judge Caprio looks up from the report with an expression that courthouse veterans recognize as dangerous. Mr. Blackwell, I'm reading the officer's observations. You'll have an opportunity to present your version of events. Right now, I need you to stop interrupting. Marcus Blackwell leans back in his chair with a slight shrug that communicates he thinks this whole proceeding is beneath him. Of course, Your Honor. I apologize. It's just that in my experience, police reports often contain subjective interpretations that don't hold up under scrutiny. I've cross-examined hundreds of officers about their arrest reports, and I know how unreliable eyewitness observations of driving behavior can be, especially at night when visibility is compromised and officers are looking for reasons to justify stops they've already committed to making. Judge Caprio's jaw tightens visibly. Mr. Blackwell, that's the third time you've interrupted me while I'm reviewing this report. This is your final warning. The next interruption will result in a contempt citation. Marcus Blackwell holds up his hands in mock surrender, and his tone drips with barely concealed sarcasm. Understood, Your Honor. I'll try to restrain my natural instinct to ensure accurate legal proceedings. The insult is subtle but unmistakable. He's suggesting that without his corrections, the legal proceedings won't be accurate. Several people in the gallery shake their heads in disbelief at his audacity. Judge Caprio takes a deliberate breath, drawing on decades of judicial experience to maintain his composure. He continues reading. Officer Martinez reports that when he approached your vehicle, he immediately detected a strong odor of alcohol. He asked if you had been drinking, and you responded by asking if he knew who you were. When he requested your license and registration, you initially refused and stated that you wanted to speak to his supervisor. Marcus Blackwell cannot stay quiet. To clarify, Your Honor, I didn't refuse to provide my license. I asked why I was being stopped, which is my constitutional right under the Fourth Amendment. The officer seemed more interested in exercising his authority than explaining the basis for the stop. Once he provided that explanation, I fully cooperated with his requests. Marcus pauses, then adds with a condescending smile, though I should note that asking to speak to a supervisor is also a constitutional right and shouldn't be characterized as uncooperative behavior in an official police report. Judge Caprio closes the police report folder with deliberate slowness, and everyone in the courtroom recognizes this gesture. When Judge Caprio stops reading and closes the file, something significant is about to happen. Mr. Blackwell, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need a direct answer without legal citations or procedural arguments. Did you have anything to drink before driving your vehicle on the night of November 18th? Marcus Blackwell adjusts his expensive watch and considers his answer carefully. Your Honor, I had dinner with clients at Castellano's Steakhouse. Over the course of approximately 3 hours, I consumed 2 glasses of wine with my meal. The alcohol was consumed with substantial food intake, which significantly reduces blood alcohol absorption rates. Based on my body weight, metabolism, and the time elapsed, I was well within legal limits to operate a vehicle safely. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change, but his voice carries new weight. Mr. Blackwell, the breathalyzer test administered by Officer Martinez measured your blood alcohol content at .12. That's not well within legal limits. That's 50% above the legal limit. Marcus waves his hand dismissively, as if Judge Caprio has just revealed his unfamiliarity with basic science. Your Honor, breathalyzer tests are notoriously unreliable. The machines require calibration every 30 days, and even small deviations in calibration can produce wildly inaccurate results. Furthermore, certain medical conditions, medications, and even diet choices can cause false positive readings. I have a medical condition called GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which can cause residual mouth alcohol that artificially inflates breathalyzer readings. This is well-established science that any competent DUI attorney knows how to use to challenge these tests. I've personally gotten dozens of BAC results suppressed using exactly these arguments. The young prosecutor assigned to the case stands up from her table. Your Honor, may I approach the bench? Judge Caprio nods, and the prosecutor walks forward carrying additional documents. Your Honor, Mr. Blackwell's driving record shows 2 prior DUI arrests in the past 7 years. Both cases were dismissed due to technicalities that Mr. Blackwell's law firm successfully exploited. The first was dismissed because the arresting officer failed to properly document the breathalyzer calibration date. The second was dismissed because of a 2-minute discrepancy in the timeline between the stop and the test administration. However, the fact that the charges were dismissed doesn't mean Mr. Blackwell wasn't driving under the influence. It means he found procedural loopholes to avoid accountability. Marcus Blackwell jumps to his feet, his carefully maintained composure finally cracking. Your Honor, those cases were dismissed because the state failed to meet its burden of proof. Those weren't loopholes. Those were constitutional protections that exist for all defendants. The fact that I understand the law well enough to identify when my rights were violated shouldn't be held against me. Judge Caprio holds up his hand for silence, and his voice becomes cold as steel. Mr. Blackwell, the prosecutor is presenting evidence. You'll have your opportunity to respond. Sit down. Marcus sits, but his face is flushed with anger and indignation. This isn't going the way he expected. He thought his legal knowledge would intimidate Judge Caprio into offering a favorable plea deal. Instead, the judge is treating him exactly like every other defendant, and Marcus Blackwell hates being treated like everyone else. Judge Caprio reviews the documents the prosecutor provided, and his expression grows increasingly serious. Mr. Blackwell, I'm looking at your case history. In the past 5 years, you've defended 63 DUI cases. Of those 63 cases, 58 were dismissed or reduced to lesser charges. That's a 92% success rate, which is extraordinary in DUI defense. Marcus Blackwell's confidence returns instantly. He interprets this as recognition of his legal brilliance. Thank you, Your Honor. I take pride in providing vigorous constitutional defense for my clients. Every defendant deserves an attorney who understands the complexities of DUI law and can identify weaknesses in the state's case. Judge Caprio's next words wiped the smile off Marcus's face. I pulled 3 of your cases to review in detail, Mr. Blackwell. Let me tell you what I found. The courtroom becomes absolutely silent. Every lawyer present leans forward. This is unprecedented. Judge Caprio continues, his voice carrying the weight of moral judgment. Case number 1. Maria Santos, a real estate executive with a blood alcohol content of 0.18. She crashed her vehicle into a fire hydrant at 2 in the morning. You got her case dismissed because the breathalyzer machine's calibration certificate was dated 3 days past the 30-day requirement. Not 3 weeks. Not 3 months. 3 days. The machine was functioning perfectly, but you found a paperwork technicality and used it to put a drunk driver back on the road. Marcus starts to object, but Judge Caprio raises his hand. I'm not finished. Case number 2. Robert Chen, a hedge fund manager with a blood alcohol content of 0.15. He sideswiped a parked car that had 2 children sleeping in car seats. You got his case dismissed because the officer's dashcam timestamp was off by 2 minutes due to daylight saving time adjustment. The video clearly showed your client was intoxicated, but you argued the time discrepancy created reasonable doubt about when the stop occurred. Those children could have been killed, Mr. Blackwell, but you got the drunk driver who nearly hit them released on a timestamp technicality. Marcus Blackwell's face turns red, but this time it's with anger, not embarrassment. Your Honor, with all due respect, those rulings were legally correct. If law enforcement can't follow proper procedures, if they can't maintain their equipment properly, if they can't synchronize their timestamps, then the evidence should be suppressed. That's how the system works. That's what the Constitution requires. I don't make the rules, Your Honor. I just know them better than most people. The arrogance in that last sentence hangs in the air like a challenge. Judge Caprio stands up from his bench, and the entire courtroom holds its breath. This is the moment when everything changes. Mr. Blackwell, let me tell you about case number 3. Jennifer Morrison, a pharmaceutical sales representative with a blood alcohol content of 0.19. She was found passed out at a red light with her foot still on the brake. Her engine was running, and she was so intoxicated she couldn't remember her own address. You got her case dismissed by arguing that because she was stopped at a red light and not moving when police found her, the officer lacked probable cause to believe she was operating the vehicle while intoxicated. Marcus Blackwell stands up, unable to control himself any longer. Your Honor, that's my job. Every defendant deserves vigorous defense. The Constitution doesn't say that constitutional protections only apply to people who are slightly guilty. They apply to everyone, and if the state can't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, if they can't follow proper procedures, then the defendant should go free. That's not gaming the system. That's the system working exactly as the founders intended. Judge Caprio's response is immediate and devastating. Mr. Blackwell, there's a difference between defending constitutional rights and exploiting technicalities to put dangerous people back on the streets. You didn't defend justice in those cases. You defended wealthy clients who could afford your $15,000 retainer. Every time you got a drunk driver released on a technicality, you sent a message that money buys freedom from consequences. And now you're standing in my courtroom as a drunk driver yourself, expecting the same technicality-based escape you've sold to dozens of others. Marcus's voice rises with indignation. Your Honor, I apologize if my legal expertise offends this court, but I have argued cases before the state Supreme Court. I've won appeals that established precedents. I've written articles for law journals that other attorneys cite in their briefs. I understand constitutional law at a level that most attorneys never reach. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through Marcus's self-congratulation like a blade through silk. Mr. Blackwell, for the past 30 minutes, you've stood in my courtroom correcting my legal terminology, interrupting my review of evidence, lecturing me about constitutional law, and demonstrating the exact arrogance that makes ordinary people distrust lawyers. You've made it abundantly clear that you believe your legal expertise makes you superior to everyone in this room, including me. Marcus Blackwell's carefully constructed facade of professional superiority finally shatters completely. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is exactly why lawyers don't respect small-town municipal judges. You don't understand the nuances of defense strategy, the complexities of constitutional law, or the sophisticated arguments that real legal minds bring to serious courtrooms. I've argued before appellate judges who actually understand these issues. I've won cases that you couldn't begin to comprehend. And frankly, Your Honor, this entire proceeding is beneath someone of my caliber. The courtroom erupts in gasps and shocked murmurs. Several attorneys in the gallery visibly cringe. The prosecutor's mouth falls open in disbelief. The court reporter actually stops typing for a moment, stunned by what she just heard. The bailiff moves closer to the defendant's table, sensing that this situation is about to escalate dramatically. Judge Caprio stands completely still, letting Marcus Blackwell's words hang in the air. The silence stretches for 10 full seconds, 15, 20. The tension in the courtroom is suffocating. When Judge Caprio finally speaks, his voice is quiet, which somehow makes it more terrifying than if he were shouting. Mr. Blackwell, you just called me a small-town municipal judge who doesn't understand real legal minds. You stated that I couldn't comprehend the cases you've won. You said these proceedings are beneath someone of your caliber. Marcus realizes his catastrophic mistake and tries to backtrack. Your Honor, I apologize. That came out wrong. I was simply trying to explain that my experience with appellate courts and complex constitutional issues might provide perspective that could expedite these proceedings. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't soften. Mr. Blackwell, I've served as a municipal judge for 38 years. In that time, I've presided over more than 250,000 cases. I've seen every type of defendant, every type of excuse, every type of arrogance. But in 4 decades on this bench, I have never encountered an attorney so disrespectful to the institution he claims to serve. Subscribe right now if you believe that no amount of legal expertise places anyone above respect for the court. Because what Judge Caprio says next doesn't just deliver justice. It dismantles an entire career built on arrogance. Hit that subscribe button and watch a master of the law teach a lawyer what the law actually means. Judge Caprio picks up a thick folder from his desk. After reviewing your record, Mr. Blackwell, I had my clerk spend yesterday afternoon researching your cases in detail. Not just the 3 I mentioned, but all 63 DUI cases you've handled in the past 5 years. Do you know what we found? We found a pattern of a brilliant attorney using his knowledge not to serve justice, but to help wealthy drunk drivers escape accountability. Maria Santos, who you got released on a calibration technicality, was arrested again 8 months later for DUI. Her blood alcohol content was .21, and this time she crashed into a school bus. Thank God it was empty and parked. Robert Chin, whose case you won on a timestamp issue, was arrested 6 months after you got him released. His BAC was .17, and he hit a pedestrian in a crosswalk. The pedestrian survived with 2 broken legs and a fractured pelvis. Jennifer Morrison, who you claimed wasn't operating her vehicle while passed out drunk at a red light, was arrested again within a year. She crashed into a convenience store at 3 in the morning with a BAC of .23. Marcus Blackwell's face has gone from red to pale white. Your Honor, I can't be held responsible for what my clients do after their cases are resolved. I provided them with competent legal defense. What they chose to do afterward is not my fault. Judge Caprio's voice rises for the first time. Not your fault, Mr. Blackwell. You put 3 drunk drivers back on the road, and all 3 of them drove drunk again and caused accidents. You didn't defend justice. You didn't protect constitutional rights. You helped dangerous people avoid consequences because they could afford to pay you. And now you're standing here drunk, having endangered lives yourself, wanting this court to give you the same escape hatch you provided to others. That's not going to happen, Mr. Blackwell. Not in my courtroom. Judge Caprio's voice becomes formal, carrying the full weight of judicial authority. Marcus Blackwell, based on the evidence presented, your behavior on the night of your arrest, your complete lack of remorse, and your contemptuous attitude toward this court, I find you guilty of operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol. You will pay a fine of $10,000. The standard fine for first-time DUI offenders is $500, but your income is substantially higher than the average defendant, and this fine is calculated to actually impact you rather than function as a minor inconvenience you can write off as a business expense. Marcus barely reacts to the fine. He makes $10,000 in a single case. He probably assumed he'd pay some money and walk away. But Judge Caprio isn't finished. Your driver's license is hereby suspended for 2 full years, effective immediately. Now Marcus reacts. 2 years. Your Honor, that's excessive for a first conviction. This is completely disproportionate to the offense. Judge Caprio's response is ice cold. This is your 3rd DUI arrest, Mr. Blackwell. The fact that you successfully got the previous 2 dismissed on technicalities doesn't erase them from your actual history of dangerous behavior. You've been arrested 3 times for drunk driving. Each time, you used your legal knowledge to escape consequences. That pattern ends today. Furthermore, I'm ordering a complete transcript of these proceedings, including video of your conduct in this courtroom, to be sent directly to the Rhode Island Bar Association. Your behavior today, including your attempt to bribe Officer Martinez, your threat against his career, and your contemptuous disrespect for this court, constitutes clear violations of Bar Rules 8.4 subsection B and 8.4 subsection D regarding attorney conduct and respect for the legal system. Marcus Blackwell's face goes completely white. Your Honor, you can't report me to the bar. That will destroy my career. My law firm, my reputation, everything I've built over 20 years will be gone. Judge Caprio leans forward, and his words are deliberate and final. Mr. Blackwell, you destroyed your own career the moment you decided that the law applies differently to you than it does to everyone else. The Bar Association will conduct their investigation and determine whether your license to practice law should be suspended or revoked. That decision is theirs to make, but they deserve to know how one of their licensed attorneys conducts himself. Marcus collapses back into his chair, the full reality of his situation finally crushing through his arrogance. But Judge Caprio still isn't finished with the sentence. You are also sentenced to 300 hours of community service, Mr. Blackwell. But not just any community service. You will provide free legal representation to indigent defendants through the Public Defender's Office. The same people you've spent your career looking down on while you defended wealthy drunk drivers who could afford your fees. Every Saturday for the next 18 months, you will report to the Public Defender's Office and take the cases that nobody wants. The defendants who can't pay. The people who need real legal help, not just technical loopholes. You'll defend people charged with minor offenses who face real consequences because they don't have $15,000 to make their problems disappear. Marcus tries one more time to argue. Your Honor, I'm a criminal defense attorney specializing in DUI cases. I don't do public defender work. I'm not qualified to handle the variety of cases that public defenders manage. Judge Caprio's expression makes clear he has no patience left for Marcus Blackwell's objections. You're a licensed attorney, Mr. Blackwell. You're qualified to practice law. And now you're going to practice law in service of people who actually need help rather than wealthy clients who want to buy their way out of consequences. Consider it continuing legal education in what justice actually means. And there's one more component to your sentence. You attempted to bribe and threaten Officer Martinez while he was performing his duty. That behavior, captured clearly on his body camera, will be forwarded to every law school in Rhode Island. Your case will be used as a teaching example in legal ethics courses. Future attorneys will study what you did as an example of what not to do, how not to behave, and why respect for the law matters more than knowledge of the law. Marcus's voice cracks with desperation. Your Honor, please. My reputation, my firm, my family. You're destroying everything I've worked for my entire adult life. Judge Caprio's response is without sympathy. You should have considered your reputation before you got drunk and drove. You should have thought about your family before you threatened a police officer's career. You should have valued your life's work before you stood in this courtroom and called me a small-town judge who couldn't comprehend your superior legal mind. Finally, Mr. Blackwell, you will write a formal letter of apology to Officer Martinez. Not a lawyer's letter full of conditional phrases and non-admission language. A real apology where you acknowledge what you did, take full responsibility for your actions, and thank him for doing his job professionally despite your threats and attempts at bribery. That letter will be published on the Providence Police Department's website so the public can see that even attorneys who break the law can be held accountable. As the sentence is delivered, the courtroom erupts in applause. It starts with one person in the back row and spreads through the gallery like wildfire. Other attorneys present, some of whom have watched Marcus Blackwell's arrogance for years, join in the applause. Officer Martinez, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom in full uniform, stands and salutes Judge Caprio. The judge lets the applause continue for a full 10 seconds before gaveling for order. Marcus Blackwell sits with his head in his hands, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume, his Rolex feeling like a weight on his wrist. The bailiff approaches. Mr. Blackwell, you need to surrender your driver's license to the court clerk before you leave today. Marcus fumbles through his wallet with trembling hands and pulls out the license he's carried for 20 years. He hands it over like he's surrendering part of his identity. As Marcus turns to leave the courtroom, Judge Caprio speaks one final time. Mr. Blackwell, you're a talented attorney. You clearly understand the law intellectually. But you never understood that the law exists to protect people, not to enrich lawyers who exploit it for profit. I hope that during your community service, while you're helping people who genuinely need legal assistance, you'll learn what justice really means. You'll learn that being brilliant at law doesn't make you superior to anyone. You'll learn that respect isn't something you demand because of your credentials. It's something you earn through your character. This court is adjourned. Within 2 hours, video clips from the courtroom hearing go viral on social media. The hashtag arrogant attorney trends nationwide. Marcus's statement about small-town judges gets 4 million views in the first day. Judge Caprio's response becomes motivational content shared across legal forums and law school groups. Local news stations lead with the story of the prominent attorney who got dressed down in court. 3 days after the hearing, Marcus Blackwell's law firm releases a carefully worded statement announcing that he has been asked to resign his partnership. 5 of his major clients immediately retain different counsel. The Rhode Island Bar Association opens a formal investigation that will take 6 months to complete. 2 weeks later, Marcus Blackwell reports to the public defender's office for his first day of community service. He's wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, not designer suits. He's assigned to represent a single mother charged with shoplifting food for her children. For the first time in his 20-year career, Marcus meets a client who actually needs help, not just someone who wants to avoid consequences they can afford to face. The supervising public defender, a woman who's spent 15 years helping indigent clients, looks at Marcus and says simply, "Welcome to real legal work, counselor. Maybe you'll finally learn what being a lawyer actually means." Judge Frank Caprio's ruling that day didn't just punish one arrogant attorney. It reminded everyone watching that the law isn't a game where the cleverest player wins. It's a system designed to protect people, deliver justice, and hold everyone accountable equally. Being brilliant at understanding legal technicalities doesn't exempt you from following the law. And respect for the courtroom isn't optional based on your credentials or your income. It's fundamental to the entire system. If this story moved you, if you believe that lawyers should be held to the highest standards of conduct, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video if you believe courtroom respect is non-negotiable regardless of how many cases you've won. Subscribe for more incredible stories that prove justice works when judges refuse to be intimidated by wealth, status, or legal credentials. And remember Judge Caprio's words that will echo in law schools for years to come. Arrogance dressed as competence is still just arrogance. That's the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. That's why respect matters more than expertise. That's what real justice looks like. Justice served. Lesson learned. Respect restored.